Folks are wondering what's going on with the kickoff and why you went in this direction. I know there's player safety on the mind and trying to get this play back into more action in it. So, what pushed it across the goal line, if you will, with some arm twisting? It appeared with membership late at night, if you will, overnight from Monday to Tuesday. Rich.
So I think history is what got us here, right? This play was a really good play for us. It was a big part of our game. We like the play a lot. There's people going in the Hall of Fame this year, Devin Hester, who, made a living on this play, and it was fun to watch. But because of space and speed, the basic format of the kickoff, the run, and then the collisions at the end of the run, it just became a play for us that, from a concussion injury rate and from a pure injury rate, it just became the most dangerous play for us in football. So what we did basically over time was we continued to evolve the rules. I think the first time we touched this rule that I've been on the committee was 94. And in that one, we were trying to encourage touchbacks. From that point forward, all we've done is we were trying to encourage returns, I should say. Then from that point forward, when we got more injury data, we just started doing things that brought less returns into it. So the stats I like to use that we show the membership is in 2010, we had 416 touchbacks. And in 2023, we had 1,970. That is somewhat of an increase. Then the other thing, Rich, that really is startling to us that I don't think people realized is in 2010, that same year, we had 45,000 kickoff return yards. And in 2023, we had 13,000. So we lost 32,000 yards of kickoff returns that were yards in our game that just came out of our game. It was time to make a change. Any change we were going to make was going to be pretty revolutionary, and this one was. It's not going to look like a typical NFL play, but this has been studied by our special teams coaches for about 3 years, and they've been tinkering with it, looking at the XFL play. We looked at every single kickoff in the XFL. What's this play going to look like to us? We're very comfortable with the changes they made, and we call it the NFL hybrid kickoff because it really is kind of our own play with the lineup and having two returners back. There's a complication to it. It's not going to seem simple. I would think by week 5, it'll look pretty typical to you, but I think in week 1, it'll look different.
Well, so 2 guys are returning, and everybody else, the kicker's in the usual spot, a man like literally standing alone, and everyone else is 5 yards apart.
Yes,
on
5 yards apart on the 40. So the coverage team's on the 40, and the return team's on the 35, right? So they're on the other side of the 50. They're 5 yards apart. It's just the idea, Rich, you're trying to make more of a punt play. You're trying to make it where those people are actually blocking each other and moving from a close proximity as opposed to 30 yards away. And that's what we're trying to do.
And of course, you on the competition committee are constantly studying consequences, unintended or what have you. So do you feel, just thinking about it, you got everybody 5 yards apart from each other, and then the blocking will occur, I guess when the ball passes the 20 in the air, or somebody has to touch it first?
Rich, so somebody's got to catch it.
Got it.
It's got to hit the ground before anybody can move. And there will be because it's new to us, there will be some adjustments. But the way we'll officiate it is we'll do it just like we do now. The people have to have their foot on the ground, both the return team and the kicking team. You got to have your foot on the ground, and that's not going to move till somebody touches the ball or touches the ground in that landing zone, i.e. the 20-yard line to the goal line. From that point forward, defense will come charging down, offense will block, and it'll look like much more like a punt play. I think what we saw in the XFL was there will be a lot of strategy. There will be some. There'll be some trickery. There'll be some strategy. You'll see players get tackled inside the 20 for sure. You'll see players that are traditional, in that 20 to 35. They'll be the great majority of the returns will end up there, but you will see many more long returns in this setup than we've been producing, and we like that.
How many more? I guess that was my question.
I would think a lot.
What are your models?
Because I think it all gets switched to the idea of how many returns are there this year? One thing we did in order to get this rule passed and to make people more comfortable is in the original rule we proposed, we set a touchback, meaning a kick that goes to the end zone and is caught in the end zone when you downed it would come to the 35. Okay. Well, we did that in order to motivate people to kick it in the field of play. I think people were nervous about the rule. So we said, okay, instead of playing for this 80 to 90% return, let's move it down to 50% and let's just move the touchback instead of the 35, make it the 30. So teams could kick it in the end zone if they're nervous about coverage. That will reduce some of the plays, but I do believe you're going to get, so we should be getting at least 25% of these plays that get themselves past that 30, 35, which is way more than we've been getting in the current kickoff configuration.
And then obviously when you configure a kickoff this way, Rich, the surprise onside kick has got to be dead and buried. I mean, you have to. Clearly, you can't just do an onside kick when one dude is standing by himself. Like, you have to declare it. Yes. And in the same way that you mentioned Evan Hester at the start of this conversation, in the same way that his return for a touchdown to start a Super Bowl is one of the biggest memories you can have in a Super Bowl. The same thing, I believe, in the same stadium in South Florida. As a matter of fact, a couple of years later, was a surprise onside kick, on the field. So my question for you on that is why not then just replace the onside kick with an actual football play that the Philadelphia Eagles keep knocking on the door? Why does the 4th and 15 or 4th and 20 play instead of an onside kick keep failing?
I happen to be one that over the years supported the idea of the play. Traditionalists don't necessarily support the idea of the play. I felt like this year, and I was, I told Philadelphia this, in my mind, there was just too much to talk about in this new kickoff play. For them to have an opportunity to get that rule passed. I believe that rule will come back and be discussed and at some point has a chance of passing. But I think for now, the onside kick, in order to get us enough votes to get the new kickoff in, the onside kick was going to stay in its traditional form.
By the way, I love it, Rich, and I'm not saying this in any way, shape, or form to be disrespectful, that there are captains of industry in that room, right? And it's just too much for walking and chewing gum at the same time. But you know, that's just the way it works.
But it's just, Rich, the one thing I love about the balance we have in our league and in that room,
yes,
is there's people that have just so much respect and so much for the history of the game, and then there are people that are the progressives that say, well, let's change. And then what we try to do is bring them data and show them the impact to the game of change and try to say, we're in charge of the quality of the game. That's one of the things that competition committee is, charged with. And so our job is to present them, not just proposals, but data that shows that from a quality of game standpoint, this will increase the quality of the game. At some point, there will be that discussion with respect to the onside kick.
And in terms
the only thing I say, Rich, on the onside kicks,
yes,
as you know, is having lost a game by one, we don't want to make it too easy because the team that's ahead has earned the right to have a chance to win that game. So the historical number has been 13%, and we're good with 13%. The fact that it's crept down to 5%, that's not a good number. We're not looking for it to go to 25%.
Mm-hmm.
The game's been played to that point, if you know what I mean. So that's where you're trying to find that balance.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.